So in 2 Samuel chapter 14, we're going to see more between David and Absalom, as there's lots of issues that are happening in the family now. So Joab arranges by artifice to bring Absalom home after 3 years. After 2 more years, Absalom sees the king and they are reconciled. So we're trying to get these two back together, but there's problems. There's legal issues and moral issues that are happening in here. Verse 1, now Joab, the son of Zeruiah, perceived that the king's heart was toward Absalom. So Joab, remember, he's kind of the chief captain. He's like the general person for the armies of Israel. He is like right underneath the king in rulership, basically, in Israel. He realizes that David really loves his son Absalom. He really does. But he knows Absalom can't come home, basically. There's too much muddied water here, too many problems. Verse 2, and Joab sent to Tekoa and fetched thence a wise woman, and said unto her, I pray thee, feign thyself to be a mourner. Put on now mourning apparel, and anoint not thyself with oil, but be as a woman that had a long time mourned for the dead. And come to the king and speak on this manner unto him. So Joab put the words in her mouth. So he asked this lady, she's really a smart lady, basically to come to pretend like she is mourning. Don't anoint yourself. Don't go through the full ritual, but just make it look like you're mourning, basically, so you don't get into troubles with using the laws to your favor. And here's the story I want you to tell the king, basically. You're going to come in and plead in front of the king. Let me give you the story that you're going to tell him. So this is verse 4. When the woman of Tekoa spake to the king, she fell on her face to the ground and did obeisance and said, Help, O king. And the king said unto her, What aileth thee? And she answered, I am indeed a widow woman, and mine husband is dead. Thy handmaid had 2 sons, and the 2 strove together in the field, and there was none to part them, but the one smote the other and slew him. And behold, the whole family is risen against thine handmaid, and they said, Deliver him that smote his brother, that we may kill him for the life of his brother whom he slew. And we will destroy the heir also, so they shall quench my coal which is left, and shall not leave to my husband neither name nor remainder upon the earth. So this is an important point I want to bring out here, because it sounds weird, to quench my coal which is left. Kind of a euphemism or phrase that they used back then sometimes. And what it means basically is a man and his descendants or successors are often termed in Scripture a lamp or light. And to raise up a lamp to a person signifies his having a posterity to continue his name and family upon the earth. Thus, quench my coal that is left means destroying all hope of posterity and extinguishing the family from among the people. That's Clarke in his Bible commentary book. So she's complaining that we gotta give up my other son, which means basically there's no one to carry the family name, because they're going to kill him and it's all over, basically. Verse 8, and the king said unto the woman, Go to thine house, and I will give charge concerning thee. And the woman of Tekoa said unto the king, My lord, O king, the iniquity be upon me and upon my father's house, and the king his throne be guiltless. So it's kind of a phraseology thing. He's going, okay, go to your house. I'm going to put you in charge. I'm going to give instructions of what your family needs to do. And she says, oh, great. This is wonderful, my king. You know, it's my problem, not yours, basically, kind of a thing. Verse 10, and the king said, Whosoever saith aught unto thee, bring him to me, and he shall not touch thee anymore. So he's willing to say, look, you can go home, you're fine, basically. But if anybody tries to accuse you of stuff or hurt you, you send them to me, and I'll take care of them. Verse 11, then said she, I pray thee, let the king remember the Lord thy God, that thou wouldest not suffer the revengers of blood to destroy any more, lest they destroy my son. And he said, As the Lord liveth, there shall not one hair of thy son fall to the earth. So the revengers of blood, if you remember back into, I believe, I don't remember if it's Leviticus or Numbers that gets into this idea. I think it's in Leviticus, that there is a challenge. Nope, it's Numbers 35:19, in fact, the reference in the footnotes. The revengers of blood is basically if somebody kills a member of your family, then the other men of the family are to avenge the blood of that family member. So they go out and they are justified in taking the life of the murderer. As long as the murderer is proved, this is why they have that city of refuge. If you're accused of murder, you flee to the city of refuge. They cannot kill you. The revengers cannot kill you. But it gives you time to put forth your case as to why you're innocent. If you're innocent, then they're free of it and they have to go figure out who killed the person. If you're not free of it, then you are the murderer and then you get kicked out of the city of refuge and now the revengers can kill you. Instead of in our day and age, we have a legal system, a judicial system and legal system that takes care of passing those laws, passing the judgments basically, and then dealing with the ramifications of that. So in these days, they didn't have that necessarily. So the family would basically kill the murderer, is what it was basically. Anytime, anywhere. He was fair game to that family, basically. So he's saying basically, she's like, the revengers of blood are going to come after him, though, basically. So they have a legal right to go after him. And that's the problem. And so he says, don't worry about it. I'll stop the revengers of blood. They can't do that. Verse 12, then the woman said, let thine handmaid, I pray thee, speak one word unto the Lord my king. And he said, say on. And the woman said, wherefore then hast thou thought such a thing against the people of God? For the king doth speak his thing as one which is faulty, in that the king doth not fetch home again his banished. So she's revealing the whole point of this story that she's told is not that she has a son that is fled, but that David has a son. And she's getting him to use a third party idea to think about how to handle the situation. And so she's trying to help David now realize, look, you would save my son from the revengers. Why not save your son from the revengers, basically? Verse 14, for we must needs die and are as water spilt on the ground, which cannot be gathered up again. If you ever try to gather water that's spilled on dirt, it doesn't happen. It gets soaked into the ground. You can't pick it back up, basically, without picking up a bunch of dirt. Neither doth God respect any person, yet doth he devise means that his banished be not expelled from him. So she's saying that the law, God can save his people and help out with things and do these things. Verse 15, now therefore that I am come to speak of this thing unto my lord the king, it is because the people have made me afraid. And thy handmaid said, I will now speak unto the king. It may be that the king will perform the request of his handmaid. For the king will hear to deliver his handmaid out of the hand of the man that would destroy me and my son together out of the inheritance of God. Then thine handmaid said, the word of my lord the king shall now be comfortable. For as an angel of God, so is my lord the king to discern good and bad. Therefore the Lord thy God will be with thee. So she's kind of blessing him and saying, yes, you're such a wise king, great David, and all this stuff. Verse 18, then the king answered and said unto the woman, hide not from me, I pray thee, the thing that I shall ask thee. And the woman said, let my lord the king now speak. And the king said, is not the hand of Joab with thee in all this? And the woman answered and said, as thy soul liveth, my lord the king, none can turn to the right hand or to the left from aught that my lord the king has spoken. For thy servant Joab, he bade me, and he put all these words in the mouth of thine handmaid. To fetch about this form of speech hath thy servant Joab done this thing, and my lord is wise, according to the wisdom of an angel of God, to know all things that are in the earth. So he realizes this lady's been set up to do this. And he goes, wait a minute, hold on a second here, hold on. Did Joab, my servant, put you up to this? Did he ask you to come do this? And she says, yeah, you're wise, great king. You figured it out. Yes, he did. So he's going, oh, okay. Verse 20, and the king said unto Joab, so now he's called Joab forward, behold now, I have done this thing. Go therefore, bring the young man Absalom again. And Joab fell to the ground on his face and bowed himself and thanked the king. And Joab said, today thy servant knoweth that I have found grace in thy sight, my lord, O king, in that the king hath fulfilled the request of his servant. So Joab arose and went to Geshur and brought Absalom to Jerusalem. So the point of this whole exercise was to help David realize, if I'm going to protect her son, Why can't I protect Absalom? Why can't I bring him back too? He's in a similar boat. So he's going, okay, Joab, go get David. Or not David. David told Joab, go get Absalom, bring him back. So now Joab is bringing Absalom back to Jerusalem. Verse 24, and the king said, let him turn to his own house and let him not see my face. So Absalom returned to his own house and saw not the king's face. So Absalom's back in Jerusalem, but not at the palace yet. Verse 25, but in all Israel there was none to be so much praised as Absalom for his beauty. From the sole of his foot even to the crown of his head, there was no blemish in him. So he was a pretty good-looking dude from what it sounds like. And when he pulled his head, for it was at every year's end that he pulled it, because the hair was heavy on him, therefore he pulled it. He weighed the hair of his head at 200 shekels after the king's weight. So the Old Testament Study Guide had this to say about this verse. It says, to pull means to thin, by means of combing or cutting. Thus, when Absalom's hair became either too thick or too long, he had it pulled. Evidently, Absalom's hair was extremely thick, and this information was probably introduced into the narrative here because Absalom's hair seems to have played a part in his death. Exactly how much weight is meant by the 200 shekels is not completely clear. This number may either be incorrect or an exaggeration of the total weight for literary purposes. So they're trying to point out Absalom is a good-looking guy, long flowing hair, lots of hair, and he has to take care of that because it gets gnarled and has problems and things, and it weighs on his head. It's really heavy, so he has to thin it out, cut it, shorten it up once a year at least to deal with that. Verse 27, and unto Absalom were born 3 sons and 1 daughter, whose name was Tamar. She was a woman of a fair countenance. So Absalom has a daughter now named Tamar. Verse 28, so Absalom dwelt 2 full years in Jerusalem and saw not the king's face. Therefore Absalom sent for Joab to have sent him to the king, but he would not come unto him. And when he sent again the second time, he would not come. Therefore he said unto his servants, see, Joab's field is near mine. He hath barley there. Go and set it on fire. And Absalom's servants set the field on fire. So Absalom spent 2 years in Jerusalem, but never went to the palace to see his dad. When Absalom sent for Joab to have sent him to the king, basically he wants to come in. Joab's not coming out to Absalom, basically. So he says, Absalom's field's over there next to mine. Go set it on fire. He's going to have to come out here and deal with it. So Absalom's trying to get Joab to come talk to him. Verse 31, then Joab arose and came to Absalom unto his house, and said unto him, wherefore have thy servant set my field on fire? And Absalom answered Joab, behold, I sent unto thee, saying, come hither, that I may send thee to the king to say, wherefore am I come from Geshur? It had been good for me to have been there still. Now therefore let me see the king's face, and if there be any iniquity in me, let him kill me. So Joab came to the king and told him. And when he had called for Absalom, he came to the king and bowed himself on his face to the ground before the king, and the king kissed Absalom. So Absalom's finally saying, I want to talk to my dad. We got to get this reconciled out. So Joab was ignoring him. So now he forced Joab to come out and talk to him by burning his field. So Joab's going to go, and why did you burn my field? Dude, you're not listening to my response. So I did something drastic to get your attention. I want to see my dad. And I want to be right with my dad. So if he sees there's iniquity in me, he can kill me. But if there's no iniquity, then we need to get this figured out, basically. So Absalom's trying to get all the resolution done on this, basically. So let's jump to chapter 15 to see what happens when Absalom does become before the King David, king of Israel.